one of the questions which is asked is that we see in du'as like Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam is talking to Allah, addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this dua. So he has some phrases that it abandons us, prohibits us from doing tawassul and istighatha. Imam alayhi salam is addressing Allah saying, Alhamdulillah allazi unadihi kullama shi'tu lihajati. Praise be Allah, the one that I only call him whenever I have a haja. Whenever I have a need, I call him. وَأَخْلُو بِهِ حَيْثُ شِئْتُ لِسِرِّي. And I have privacy with Allah, I have intimacy with Him anytime I wish, بِغَيْرِ الشَّفِيءٍ, without anyone to intercede for me, without anyone to be between me and Him. فَيَقْضِي لِي حَاجَتِي. Then Allah provides my hawa'ij and my needs. Then Imam says, Alhamdulillah alladhi la ad'u ghayrah. Praise be Allah, the one that I don't call anyone other than Him. وَلَوْ دَعَوْتُ غَيْرَهُ لَمْ يَسْتَجِبْ لِي دُعَائِي. And if I wanted to call anyone other than Allah, they wouldn't answer my call. So they say, look, the dua of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam is very clear that we shouldn't do tawassul, we shouldn't do istighatha, we have to call only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't say that Ibn Taymiyyah is the person who prohibited tawassul. Before Ibn Taymiyyah, Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they prohibited tawassul.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
First of all, we have to see and we have to study the chain of narration. We refer to very strong hadiths, and we said it's not a hadith or two, that they are confirming the issue of tawassul and istighatha in Sunni books, in Shia books. When it comes to du'as, we usually follow the rule of at-tasamuh fi adillat as-sunan. We take it easy with dua. We are not that much strict with dua. We just want to have a kind of relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I see that these words of Imam in Abu Hamza Thumali is much greater than what I can fabricate from myself to talk to Allah. When you look at these du'as, they teach you how to get into a deeper relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this way, ulama, they're not strict with the chain of narration. But on the other side, you cannot take your aqidah from the dua. When it comes to matter of aqidah, you have to make sure that this hadith, this dua is 100% from Imam. We referred in the previous sessions to du'as from Usul al-Kafi, from Gamal al-Ziyarat, that the chain of narration is okay. And there they said that you can do istighatha, you can do tawassul, you can talk to Imams who are not in this dunya. They hear you. The hadith says that said, if you are far from Imam, your salam, your word will be delivered to Imam. Allah hadith says it will be delivered. If you are by the grave, they hear you. The hadith is very strong, no problem with that. But when it comes to a dua like Abu Hamza Thumali, we see that Dua Abu Hamza Thumali has been mentioned in the first sources comes by in the book of Misbah al-Mutahajjid wa Salah al-Muta'abbad by Shaykh Tusi Rahmatullah alayhi, volume 2, page 582. There he says, Shaykh says, Dua al-Sahar fi Shahr Ramadan. At that time is not Dua Abu Hamza Thumali. They used to call it Dua al-Sahar. That later on, because the narrator is Abu Hamza Thumali, it has become to be famous as Dua Abu Hamza Thumali. Then he says, Rava Abu Hamza Thumali قال كان علي بن الحسين سيد العابدين يصلي عامة الليل في شهر رمضان فإذا كان السحر دعا بهذا الدعاء. He says that narrates from Abu Hamza Thumali. Directly, Shaykh starts from Abu Hamza Thumali. So he's not bringing the chain of narration. The hadith is mursal. So according then to the first narration, which is Shaykh Tusi, the hadith is mursal. He's not bringing the chain of narration. So with all respect that we have to do Abu Hamza Thumali, and we benefit from the Abu Hamza Thumali, but you cannot take aqidah from this dua. So according to the narration of Shaykh Tusi, this hadith is mursal. The other one is mentioned later on in the 6th century by Sayyid ibn Dawus in Iqbal al-A'mal. The old publication, volume 1, page 67. Here, Shaykh Sayyid ibn Tawus, rahmatullah alayhi, he says, فَمِنَ الدُّعَاء فِي سَهَرِ كُلِّ لَيْلَةٍ مِنْ شَهْرِ رَمَضَانِ In the dua of every night in the month of Ramadan, مَا رَبَيْنَاهُ بِإِسْنَادِنَا We have narrated this by our chain of narration. So, Sayyid is not mentioning the chain of narration. He says, by my own chain of narration. So, the hadith is mursal from Sayyid's side. مَا رَبَيْنَاهُ بِإِسْنَادِنَا إِلَى أَبِي مُحَمَّد Harun bin Musa al-Akbari. So here you see that Raziyallahu anhu, Shaykh Sayyid ibn Tawus is starting the chain of narration from whom? From Tal-Akbari. What time is Tal-Akbari? Tal-Akbari is the 4th century. And Sayyid is the 6th century. So he says, Bi-Isnadana. So the hadith is mursal. Again, he says, Tal-Akbari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu bi-isnadehi. Tal-Akbari is the 4th century. Bi-isnadehi to whom? Bi-isnadehi ila al-Hasan ibn Mahbub. He narrates from Hasan ibn Mahbub. Hasan ibn Mahbub is what time? It has been mentioned from 129 or 149 to 224. So he is 2nd and 3rd century. Again, there is a gap between Tal-Akbari and Hasan ibn Mahbub. Bi-isnadehi. He says by the narration of Tal-Akbari, because he is a thiqa, he is a reliable person. According to Shia, so they have accepted the dua. So you see, dua that Shaykh Tusi is narrating, no chain of narration. The one that Sayyid is narrating, it's mursal from Sayyid's side, it's mursal from Tal-Akbari's side. Tal-Akbari didn't mention the connection, the chain of those rijal that he took the dua from them between him and Hasan ibn Mahbub. So again, this hadith, according to Sayyid, the narration of Sayyid is also mursal. So when the hadith is mursal, you cannot establish your aqidah on that. So you cannot reject all those strong hadiths we mentioned from Usulul Kafi, from Basair al-Darajat, from the other books, Kamil al-Ziyarat. We went through the chain of narration. We mentioned the views, and we just mentioned some of the hadiths. If you want to mention all the hadiths, they will be abundant. So, and also bear in mind the Sunni side, the hadiths from the Sunni side. So that side, it has its arguments. Quran is mentioning, we talked about Quran, I don't want to refer again to go back to those things. So you come to a dua which is mursal. Of course, we accept the dua because we consider a person like Tal-Akbari to be a reliable person. So certainly, not certainly, it's very likely that Tal-Akbari had a chain of narration between him and Hasan ibn Mahbub. He considered this reliable than he narrated. So we trust on Tal-Akbari that he had a chain of narration between him and Ibn Mahbub. But this is zanni. This is a conjecture. This is a kind of taqleed. This is not ijtihad. We are not doing ijtihad in this. We are just doing taqleed. We are just following Tal-Akbari, no matter you are mujtahid or not. When it comes to this position that you should and you want to rely on narration of Tal-Akbari, you are doing taqleed, and this is a conjecture. So this is not a strong chain of narration to establish your aqidah on that. So the chain of narration with Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, there are such points. Anyhow, the hadith is mursal, is disconnected. And regardless of the issue of the narration, chain of narration, even when you look at the content of dua, you see that sometimes there are issues that raise some doubts. That maybe at least some parts might not be from Imam, especially when you compare the Dua Abu Hamza Thumali with the Sahifa Sajjadiyah. There are terms in Sahifa Sajjadiyah, in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, that you don't find such a literature in Sahifa Sajjadiyah, which is from Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam. So, for example, he says, أَمَّا الرَّاحِلُ إِلَيْكَ قَرِيبُ الْمَسَافَةِ. The term rahil is mentioned in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali. You don't find such a word in Sahifa Sajjadiyah. Imam is not using that kind of words in Dua Sahifa Sajjadiyah. or the other points, like for example, Imam in several places in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali, he asked for ziyarah to Qabr al-Nabi. Allah give me the chance to do ziyarah of Qabr al-Nabi. Usually this is for someone who is not living in Medina, for a person who lives in Medina, who every day the Imam could go to and do the ziyarah of the grave of the Prophet. Even though this content itself is against these people, to go and to do ziyarah of the grave of the Prophet is against their claim. Actually, how can you do ziyarah when the Prophet is not hearing you and you're doing something irrational? But anyhow, even though the concept of ziyarah in Dua Abu Hamza Thumali is against their claims, but at the same time, Imam to ask Allah to have the tawfiq to go to the ziyarah of the Prophet, it's not wrong, but it doesn't that much make sense. Even though Imam may say that, oh, every day even if I'm going, I need to have a tawfiq. You can justify it somehow. I don't want to say it's wrong. You can justify it somehow, but if we accept it, it's against these people who are rejecting istighatha. So, regardless of the things in the chain of narration, when we go to dua, Imam says, Alhamdulillah alladhi unadihi kullama shi'tu lihajati. Praise be Allah, the one that I ask Him in any hajat that I have. And I have intimacy and privacy with Him anytime I wish. Yes, nobody denied it. You don't need to refer to Abu Hamza Thumali, Salat itself. Every day in Salat you say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. When you are performing Salat, isn't it a privacy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? When you are performing Salatul Layl, isn't it a privacy with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? So, if you have the chance to talk to Allah without anyone to intercede for you, this is something. And to say that you are not allowed to have tawassul is something else. You see, we have two things. One, to talk to Allah. Can you talk to Allah directly or not? Yes, you are permitted. That's why we perform salat. But there is another way. There are some wasa'il we can use to make this connection easier, quicker, faster. Then we can make sure that our dua is not going to be ignored. We mentioned those authentic hadiths that you say, Allahumma inni ataqarrabu wa nabiyyaka. So those hadiths that you are calling the Prophet, so we have two ways. A simple way. We have two ways. One way to talk to Allah directly. The other way is to have wasila to go towards Allah. Both ways are permissible. Both ways are open. So when you call Allah through the Prophet, this doesn't mean that you cannot talk to Allah alone. You want to talk to Allah alone? Talk to Allah alone first. So first of all, when we are saying we can do tawassul, doesn't mean that you are not allowed to talk to Allah directly. Do you think that those people who permitted tawassul, they didn't perform salat? They didn't say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in? They thought that even in salat they have to appeal to the Prophet. In salat you are addressing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So first of all, we have two ways to talk to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One way is to ask and address Allah directly. You say, Ya Allah. You don't bring any wasila. You say, Ya Allah, I want this and that from you. Yes, you are permitted to do that. Nobody denied it. But there is another way. You want to make sure that your dua is going to be answered. You say, Allahumma bihaqqa Muhammad. Allahumma bihaqqa Ali. Allahumma bihaqqa Hussein. Allahumma bi nabiyyika nabiyyir rahmah. You are asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the name of the Prophet. Or even you can do istighatha to the Prophet. The way that we talked about it, I don't want to repeat. The way that people did istighatha to Isa alayhi salam in their Haba'ish Quran says. And we talked about the issue that they are alive, they can hear you. I don't want to repeat all those things. So when they were alive, they used to do to answer the call of people, and they have a life in barzakh, and they have the capability and power because we said that they are close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is the result of being muqarrab and wajihun fit dunya wal akhirah. To be wajih, to have reputation and credit before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when dua says, "Oh Allah, praise be Allah, the one that I can call him without anyone to intercede for me," doesn't mean that you cannot use intercessors to get closer to Allah. Yes, you can call and talk to Allah without intercessors. Option 1. Option 2, you can use intercessors to easily get and faster and quicker get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can go from here to shop on your foot, walking, it's gonna take you an hour. You can take a car, it will go in 5 minutes. It's up to you. Both are available. Then it says, Alhamdulillah allazi la ad'u ghayrah. Praise be the one that I don't call anyone other than him. وَلَوْ دَعَوْتُ غَيْرَهُ لَمْ يَسْتَجِبْ لِي دُعَائِي. And if I wanted to call other than him, they were not to answer me. They say, see, Imam says, I don't call anyone other than Allah. So how can you call the Prophet? We answered these things in the previous sessions, that this means that I don't call anyone other than you to be independent. I only call you. The way that I call you, I ask from you. I ask from you. The verse of Quran says, Ud'uni astajib lakum. But this doesn't mean that when I call you, I don't have any wasila. Otherwise, when you go to doctor, we talked about it. When you say, oh doctor, please help my son. My son is sick. Oh, please help my son. Is it shirk? Allah said, Ud'uni astajib lakum. Why you're calling the doctor? Oh father, I need 10 million to buy a house. It's okay. Ya Ali, I need 10 million to buy a house. This is shirk. I don't know where this logic is coming from. This is the life of wasail. This is the life of the means that you have to appeal to means, to instruments, instrumental things in your life. So Imam alayhi salam says, I don't call anyone other than you, but this doesn't mean that there is no condition. Otherwise, if it means that I don't call anyone other than Allah in my needs, so you cannot, if you call your father, give me 10 million, I want to buy a house, this is shirk. Because you have to call Allah only. You cannot say, oh doctor, come and help me. Please help me with my son, with my daughter, with myself. So this will be shirk, because you have to only call Allah. You cannot call anyone other than Allah. If that is the interpretation. And what negates that understanding is the second phrase, وَلَوْ دَعَوْتُ غَيْرَهُ لَمْ يَسْتَجِبْ لِي دُعَائِي. If I wanted to call other than Allah, they wouldn't answer my call. How many people you know that they have gone to the grave of the Prophet or Imams and they have received their hajat? If we interpret the dua the way that you are interpreting it, so nobody should take and receive any haja from the awliya. So according to your interpretation, if somebody has experience of getting shafa from Imam al-Raza, from Imam al-Hussein, from the Prophet, that they are abundant, there are many, then Imam Zainul Abidin is lying. Because Imam Zainul Abidin here is saying that if I wanted to call anyone other than you, they couldn't respond me. They couldn't answer me. So when they are answering me, when they are answering people, when they go to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they get shifa, they go from... There are lots of people at our time, they have received shifa from Imam Rida alayhi salam. It's recorded there. Sometimes they are now they document it in the office of the Shu'ayn of Imam Rida alayhi salam. They document the cases that they receive shifa with certain proofs. There are lots of such stories. It's not one or two to say that people are lying. So if you yourself, you have this experience, you appeal to Imam Hussein in haja, you receive the haja, then Imam Zainul Abidin is lying. Because Imam said, if I ask from anyone other than you, they cannot answer me. So if they are answering me, it means that they are God like you. Does it make sense? And there are thousands of such experiences. I mentioned the book of Sunni, who has collected the experiences of from the first time, those who appeal to the grave of the Prophet, Muhammad ibn Munkadar, they say Akhu Umar is the brother of Umar, is very close to Umar. He mentions the story of his father appealing to the grave of the Prophet. So there are lots of such stories mentioned from the very first day till our time. So if what you are saying is correct, then all these stories negate the claim of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, that he said, if I wanted to call anyone other than you, they wouldn't respond me. But they are responding. The way that you want to understand the dua is wrong. Bika istighathati. Yes, my istighatha is in you. What does it mean? It means that I don't see anything independent from you. You are the only source of power that who can help me independently. All power, Iyaka na'budu wa Iyaka nasta'in is this. Iyaka nasta'in, we ask help from you. Does it mean that then I don't ask help from my father, my brother, my relatives, my friends? You need ista'ana in your life. You go to your brothers, to your friends. This is what people do. Muslims do. The Prophet, the others, you and me, when we have needs in our life, we do ista'ana. We ask help from our friends, our relatives. This is how the life is. You cannot be separate, independent from others. You cannot survive like that. So is it to negate Iyaka nasta'in? We only ask help from you. So essentially trust is in Allah. Essentially hope is in Allah. Essentially dua is from Allah. But it doesn't negate asking others, calling others by the intention that these are the servants of Allah and there is nothing to be in their hand independently and separate from Allah.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad.